Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Home Remodelers Survival Guide series. I hope you've had a chance to settle in and grab your favorite evening beverage and spend a few minutes with us, about a half hour or so, talking about this idea of remodeling. And as the title says, how do we avoid some of the remodeling pitfalls? How do we avoid some of those nightmares that we hear about? So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight over the next half hour or so. And it may be a little bit different from what you expected, but I think it's all good information, all in the effort to make sure that we have success with your project as you start to consider your home remodeling. I want to just take a couple of moments and introduce myself and a couple of the people present. My name is Bill Judson. You can see my credentials there. I'm a licensed architect here in the state of California, have a couple degrees in engineering and architecture. And I always like to point out the last little bit there about the Judson Studios. That's my family business, a stained glass studio along the banks of the Arroyo Seco in near Pasadena and Los Angeles. And the reason I bring it up is when I think about stained glass, it's such a good metaphor for the bringing together of function and beauty, of architecture and beauty, because windows are obviously a part of the fabric of our buildings, right? They're part of the architecture. They need to keep the weather out, the wind, the rain, and all of that, but yet they can also be things of beauty. And in this case of stained glass, we can have beautiful art in those. And as I reflect back over my 15 years with HartmanBaldwin, I see that parallel, because that's what we do at HartmanBaldwin. The places that we live, the places that we enjoy ourselves, they can be beautiful and artful as well. And so the idea of bringing function together with art and beautiful things is something that's resonated with me my entire life. I also want to point out, with us on our webinar tonight are a few people from HartmanBaldwin. You'll see them down there along the bottom: Jesse, Carla, Christina, and Danielle. They will be available. If you're familiar with Zoom, you may see the title bar up on the top. On my iPad, it's up on the top right. You can see Q&A. If you happen to have a question, pop it in there, and you will either answer it directly, or we'll also have a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar tonight. So some of those questions, if we feel like it may be germane to the whole group, we'll ask it in front of the whole group. If it's specific to you, then we'll do that. And we'll stick around and take care of that, answer all your questions, make sure that all that's taken care of. I also want to give you a little bit of a history of HartmanBaldwin. If you're not familiar with us, we are as it says there, a fully integrated architecture, construction, and interior design firm. What does that mean? From the beginning, Devin Hartman and Bill Baldwin were on the construction side, and they felt this need for design and construction to get together. So when they decided to form this business over 35 years ago, that was part of the commitment. They said, how do we do this? Because they realized when they were out in the field on a project, that had they had more exposure to the designer earlier on, things may have been a little bit easier. And if they had more access to the designer during construction, things could almost get better. So right from the beginning, our company has been fully integrated. You know, as I mentioned, I'm an architect. We also have 5 other full-time architects here. We're general contractors, so we have a general contractor's license, and we also have full-time interior design staff. And if you get a chance to stick around in this series, you'll hear some of what we believe is the benefits of that, and then we'll continue to talk about that in the next piece of our series. Let's just look at a couple projects real briefly that we've done, so you can get an idea of what we do. Miramonte Residence. This was a turn-of-the-century craftsman up in Sierra Madre. Obviously, we worked on their kitchen, and this obviously wasn't the way we were doing kitchens at the turn of the century. But this family really wanted to upgrade that kitchen and get it in a place that fit with the rest of the house. You can see on the left there the view they had. Maybe we'll click over to the before photo just to give you a sense. Here it is before. You can see a little tired. I think it was probably redone in the 50s or 60s, but very closed off. You know, when you look at this, you kind of walked in from the dining room and you had the kitchen and a little bit of a seating area, but really not much flow into the rest of the house. It was really just kind of isolated by itself. So they wanted to not just update the kitchen, but they wanted also a little bit of an area that the family could be together while they were cooking. You know, that idea of holding a family gathering and people are cooking, but yet other people are kind of gathering around and everything. And that we could all be together. You can also see that view that they had, and they really didn't have much access. And here it is, you know, a beautiful evening in Southern California. And why couldn't we be outside having our dinner? So they wanted to improve all of that. So if we go back to the after shot, we'll show you just how much brighter this kitchen is and how much more up to date. And of course, we tried to pay a little bit more homage to the Craftsman style in there. And you see the beautiful backsplash tile, some of the detailing on the cabinetry. And then I really love, you know, the view. And then also this piece here, this is a door that steps right out onto a deck, so that now they can have a nice evening meal right off of the kitchen and enjoy that beautiful view that they have. You'll see that little piece down there at the bottom. We featured this project in one of our showcases. And if you're interested, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com /HartmanBaldwin, or go to YouTube, search for Hartman Baldwin, and you'll find this and a couple other cool projects if you're interested and want to look at those. We also do major remodels. For example, this home here, this is a home happens to be in South Pasadena, in Hillside Residence, Tudor style, obviously a little bit different. But this project, we went through and completely renovated this house. They had these beautiful high volume ceilings, lots of detailing. But the house wasn't quite working for them in terms of the size and the flow. They still wanted a little bit more room. The garage was awkward as it was laid out on the site. And then the young family wanted to have a place where they could entertain and have other kids over and just have a really fun backyard. So if we switch over to the before, you can see that, you know, the stucco was old, the landscaping was old, the roofing, the same was true of the inside. And then you can see where this chimney is right now. We're at the back of the house, and then the hill sloped down in the front of the house. And so we won't go right now, but in a second, when I show you the after photo, you'll see what we did where that chimney is. That came down. We dug out towards the front of the house so that we could get a garage virtually underground. And then we got another playroom there that opened out onto that deck, master suite above, redid the whole kitchen, all of the bathrooms, restored everything else, and just ended up with a beautiful home, both inside and out. So let's look at the after again. So there you can see it. Underneath this section right here, okay, is a garage. And then you can see on the ground level, we have this beautiful sunroom that opens right out onto the pool deck. And then up here is the beautiful master suite. You can see, and it's got views all the way around it. Just a really, really spectacular solution for this couple. And that was, you can see we redid all the pool. We gave them a pool cabana with an outdoor kitchen, lots of shade, really master planned that whole estate for them. We also do ground up homes. In this particular home that we're looking at is a modern home. If you can imagine where this picture is taking, if I were to swing around, they have these beautiful views of the mountains right up on it's interesting that it's called All the Knoll. It is right on a knoll. So they have these 360-degree views all the way around. So we wanted to maximize that and give a house that had a good flow to it, a good feel. This isn't a real big house per se, but the spaces fit right. And that indoor-outdoor living is really accentuated. For example, if we see the next slide, you can see here in the living room, all this beautiful view. We use this beautiful floor to ceiling glass to really take in all of that view. You can see the kitchen right off of that, taking in some of the view. Obviously, we need walls in kitchen for cabinets and things like that. And then we had some fun things with a koi pond, right that you see right here, and this punctuation through some of the roof structure. And then these beautiful steel and glass doors that really sort of set up that feeling of welcoming into this modern house, and then bringing us into that beautiful view. Really, really fun. So that's all I really want to spend talking about what we do specifically, but I just wanted to show you some things that we do, from the sort of kitchen remodels up to major renovations and of course, new homes. Okay, now, what do we really want to talk about today? I'd like to take a little bit of time and just talk about why we do this workshop. I think when we started this about 15 years ago, we had this idea that, hey, we're on to something here. We had a bunch of good projects under our belt that went well, that were highly successful. And we decided, hey, we're going to take this to the streets. We're going to bring this out to everybody because this is working. And we thought, hey, if we can educate everybody, then, you know, all ships will rise with the tide idea. What we found when we started to go and talk to people, that people came into the rooms, and in this case, into our Zoom meetings with, I'll call it fears. There were things that were holding us back. I would talk to people that would talk about, oh, when we moved in, the day we moved into our house, I knew we'd have to remodel the kitchen, and the master shower stopped working about 6 months after we bought the house. And then I'd ask people, well, how long have you lived here? And I'd expect to hear 6 months, a year. And I would hear things like 10 years, 12 years. And I'd scratch my head, oh my gosh, you've been living in this house for 12 years and you've never taken a shower in your master shower? Something's holding us back. So I started to think about what is that? What are some of those fears? And how do we make sure that we're addressing those? Because this can be easy. I also want to mention, you know, the other thing that started to come about was this idea of opportunity costs. And what do I mean by that? You know, most of the time people are going to remodel once. And so that is our one opportunity to improve your lifestyle and improve the value of your home. I think we've probably all walked into homes and walked, you know, I think of one specifically, a cute little cottage down here in the village. And I walked through it one time and someone had put on this awful addition. And I was happened to be walking through with it with a guy that was thinking about buying it. He'd asked me to come and get my opinion. And as we walked out, he asked me what I thought, and he could tell I was hesitating. He said, you know, that addition has to come down. And what do you think his next question to me was, how much to take it down? And I could see that he was discounting how much he was going to offer on that house. And I think, oh my gosh, those people spent a fair amount of money doing that addition only to devalue their home, at least to the person that I was standing there with. So we want to make sure whatever we're doing, we're taking this opportunity to improve the lifestyle, to improve the value of your home. And then I mentioned, talk about the fears. Let's get those out there because this can be easy. I also want to mention too, it's about preparation as well. That's why we do this workshop. I find that if people take the time and prepare and understand what they're getting into, the more prepared you are, the better your chances for success. And so attending webinars like this, if you get a chance maybe to see others, if we get out and about, maybe we could even go see finished projects. But the more time you spend now laying the groundwork, understanding all of this, the more your chance you have for success. So what are we going to talk about today? One of the things I want to make sure is we're starting at the right point, okay? So often I find that people jump the gun a little bit, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get going. And then we're also going to lay out a framework on how to decide what to do, okay? Let's dig in here. Where do we begin? First off, I want to just, you know, I'm going way back here, right? We don't begin by picking out floors, or we don't begin by taking out, you know, light fixtures or anything like that. We really begin on who are the stakeholders, who needs to be involved here, right? And let's understand what those things are. or what those needs are. You know, I had one family tell me that when they were laying this groundwork, they came to the workshop, they took my ideas, and they took a salad bowl and they just put it on the kitchen table for a week. And if anybody had an idea or a need, the kids, the parents, everybody, they just write it down and put it in that bowl. That was a great way to just get it all out there. Because if you do get involved and start to work with an architect or someone like ourselves, it may be the things that you dropped in there that maybe you didn't give much thought that are really going to be a great impetus for the project. So we want to make sure we're hearing all of the voices here. Communication as well, you know, we want to make sure that we're talking about the right thing at the right time. I'm always a little taken aback, but it's okay. When I go to some people's homes before we've even started talking, and they've already hired a structural engineer, and the engineer has told them what they need to take out walls to do all of these things. And I think, scratch my head, okay, great, that's information, that's good information. We'll use that information, but it's a little out of sync, you know. We'll figure out how to handle all of those things, but we need to be asking the right questions at the right time. And so I'm encouraging you at the beginning, let's just take a little bit of time to go real big picture, because if we can lay that out, if we can get the big picture right, then when we start working with the professionals, we're able to focus, okay? And so this is the time to be open-minded, to listen to all of these ideas, because through all of that, we're gonna help make sure that we accomplish everything that you want, all right? So in those lines, staying big picture, there's 5 things here that we need to talk about. The first, well, let me read all 5 of them there for you. The duration, that's how long you plan to stay in your home. The location of your home. Have you explored all of your options? Have you thought about your family? You know, am I at a place where my children are young and my family's growing? Am I at a place where, you know, my family's starting to leave the nest and I want to adjust for that? Am I at a place where, hey, we don't have a family, it's us, but we are going to be spending our life together, and how do we want to do that? So we want to talk about all that. And then probably one of the hardest topics is budget, money, right? Where do we want to be in that? So let's dig into these a little bit more. Talk about duration, how long you plan to stay in your home. If you're able to reach your computer or your iPad or your phone, we're going to have a poll pop up here. And I want you to just give me an idea of how long you plan to stay in your home. 1 to 4 years, 4 to 8 years, 8 to 15, or over 15. Okay, 8 to 15 years, over 15 years. Great, that's good information. Now I know who's out there, because the interesting thing about this is if we're 1 to 4 years, we're really just getting our house ready to sell. 4 to 8 years, we need to be careful about what we do, and I'll show you why in a minute. If we get into that 8 to 15 years, 15 plus years, and we're in Southern California, that really starts to free us up about what we could do. And I'll show you here, hopefully that you can understand what I'm talking about in this next graph. If we start to think about the duration, right? One of the things we need to weigh against is what are our costs and what's our value, and then how does that relate over time? So what I like to do is say, okay, let's look at this. Let's get together and look at all of the costs that you have into your home. What did you buy the home for? What previous projects have you done? And then we will be able to give you input on how much what you want to do is going to cost, okay? Then we can look at the value. We can look at what's the current value and how much the project that you're considering is going to raise the value of that home, okay? And we can put those out together. In fact, if you really want to dig into this, you can Google Remodeling Magazine Cost versus Value Report. And what they do, it's great because they'll show you some typical projects, and you can dial down into the LA metro area, and then it'll show you the value of that project as a percentage. We're at a time now where none of those projects are 100%. We're not going to get 100% return the day that we're done, right? But, you know, we may see 70, 80, 90%, but time is on our side, right? Because if we think about that, and I will pull up this graph here. So if we look at, money over time, this line here indicates what it looks like if our real estate values are increasing 6% year over year. Now, all of you mentioned that you're in that 8 to 15 or 15 and over time frame. So that's pretty safe. Historically, I've done the math. I've gone back and looked, and in some 10-year periods, we've actually seen more than a 6% increase year over year in Southern California. Even with a dip in a recession, if we get a good 8 to 10-year time frame, we're pretty safe. So what does that mean? So let's imagine here, we're coming along time and we have our kind of fixed, our costs is relatively fixed, and we decide at this time to do a remodel, and the remodel costs this much, right? So now our costs are going to be up at this point. Now, if we then go and look at the value that that's giving to the house, we see that we have a gap. Maybe we're only getting 80% of that return, okay? And we're underwater by that little bit of amount, right? But let's not worry if we're on that 8 to 10, 8 to 15, 15 and over, because then what happens is now the new value of our home is here, down under our costs, but look what happens over time. If we follow that 6%, it's pretty quick. It's a relatively short amount of time that we're back up, right? And now the money that we've put into the home, be clear, I'm not talking about flipping, but the money that we've put into the home, we're going to get that back, okay? And that's only going to increase the value. So duration, why is this important? It's important because we can start to see how much we can do, the type of projects we could do with the comfort of knowing what we have, the time that we have on our side. Why do we need to talk about this? I'm surprised. I shouldn't be surprised because I am married, but I've gone into homes and sat down with a couple and I've asked the question, how long do you plan to stay in the home? And maybe one of them will cross their arms and lean back and say, they're going to have to carry me out of here feet first. And the other one may look at them and say, what? I thought we were retiring to Santa Barbara in 5 years. So we need to make sure that we're on the same page. Now, I understand things change. We don't want to lock ourselves into anything, but we need to talk about that and at least kind of get an understanding of where we're at, right? Hopefully this makes sense. Next thing, what do we want to talk about? Location. I'm going to pull a poll up here and I want you to rate your location on a scale of 1 to 4. No 2.5s. Give me something, on one side of the fence or the other. And when I say rate your location, that means your neighborhood, your proximity to the things that you like to visit, or maybe to your job, schools, that kind of thing. All right, everybody likes their neighborhood. I got 73% of good and 27 are best. So that's all good to know. Now, why do I bring this up? And I won't spend too much time on it because you guys all like your neighborhood, but the point is that there are some things that we can solve about your location through architecture and other things we can't, right? I can't move your school closer to your home or your church closer to your home. I can't do much about your neighbors, right? But I can, like if your neighbors are bothering you, I can come in and build a wall or build a nice big hedge or orient your home so that you've got privacy, or do things that give you more, sound insulation from everybody else. So keep that in mind. There are some things we can fix with architecture and other things we can't. The other thing I want to talk about is if you explored your options. Now, let's talk about these. Do we remodel? These are the things that I hear. Should we remodel the home? Does it make more sense just to tear this house down and start from scratch, from the ground up? Should I move, right? So we want to make sure we're understanding all of those because, it can be kind of expensive to do a remodel, right? So what are we talking about here? If we go to remodel your home, we're pretty clear on what those costs are going to be. We're going to have, architecture fees, engineering, permits, construction. If we tear down your house, what is that going to do to us? Okay, that's great. We can tear it down. We'll have all of those costs. but now we're also going to have an increased permit costs, and even more impactful is we're going to be reassessed. Okay, so if you've owned your home, in an extreme, even before Prop 13, your real estate taxes are relatively low in California. We're going to get reassessed if we do a major remodel, tear down your home, or similarly, if you go to move, right? If you go to move, you have the cost of selling your home, the cost of moving, and then you also have that reset in your real estate tax base. Not only that, a lot of times we'll be in a design and I'll go with people to look at other homes, and they'll go and find that all those other homes need to be remodeled too. So they tend to fall back in love with their new home, especially if they're like you guys and like your location. So we want to make sure we're looking at all of that. We also want to consider your family, right? I talked about this. I talked about the home early on, about the gentleman that was looking at that home that wanted to tear off that addition. It was interesting in talking to that family. They had put that addition on, and the reason that they were moving was because where that addition was where it would have made sense to have a den. They built it as a little nursery for their daughter. 12 years passed. She's now a big young woman, and all of her friends would come over and just occupy all that time. So that decision that they made years ago, not only it devalued their home, but it was forcing them out. All right. So we want to have discussions on that long term, what your plans are. And then finally, budget. And I want to spend just a minute about this because, if we ever have the chance to meet and talk, or if you talk with Jesse or Carla or one of us, we may ask you the question, have you thought about how much you'd like to spend? You notice how I asked, have you thought about how much you want to spend? I didn't ask, how much do you want to spend? Because we don't need to know that right now. It's always helpful information if you do know it, but I just want to make sure you're thinking about it. And sometimes I'll get an answer like, yeah, I talked to my financial advisor, I've got 500,000, I can't go over that. Great, okay, good information. We'll keep you under that. But the last thing you want to do is get involved with one of those situations where they said it was going to be 500,000, but it turned out double, right? And that happens. That's a scary thing. Another answer I'll get is, oh, I'm not sure. I think, we'd like to be between 500,000 and 600,000. So let's get in there. Depends on what we get. Good. Again, good information. Other people just don't know. Okay. And that's fine too. You may need more information, or you may be a little bit more flexible that if we show you, hey, for just incrementally more, you get all of this. If we do it all at the same time, then we may be able to go and find some more resources for that, okay? So this isn't a hard and fast, give me the answer, as much as let's talk about it. Where are we coming from? What resources do we have? Where are we comfortable? All right, so that's my point. We just need to be able to talk about that. Once we have that, then we can really start looking at your house. And I want to just, again, stay big picture here for a second. And I want to mention this concept, and you'll see it up there at the top. Architecture is never passive, okay? Now, it's just sitting there, right? It's not doing anything. But what I'm saying is it has an impact on the way you're living your life. And so what I want you to do is think about the liabilities of your home. This home that I have a plan up in here for, I'm going to use as an illustration. I walked into this house, and the woman of the house said, I want you to blow out this wall. Her words, not mine. Blow out this wall and give me a bigger kitchen. Hey, great. That's exactly what we do. Be a nice project for us. But why do you want to do that? And she went on to tell a story of how every Sunday after church, they had 30 people or so come over to her house, and where do you think they all went? Into the kitchen, right? They all were in here. She said, I go out and I put the food out here. They all go out, get their food, and come back into the kitchen, right? And this woman, very charismatic, great cook, so everybody wanted to eat her cooking and to be with her, right? So then I started to ask, well, would you be open if we, took down some of your walls and opened it up because, little tip here, generally speaking, it's always more expensive to go up than it is to go out to get space in our homes. And it's always more expensive to go out than if we can re-engineer, if we can reconfigure your interior. So we started to talk about that. And she said, yeah, in fact, that makes a lot of sense because we may as well put a velvet rope around our living room. No one ever goes in there. Dining room, we sit there twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So yeah, we'd be up for that. And you know, it was funny, the gentleman told me, hell, that's a bearing wall. This was a 2-story house. He said, we can't take that out. And I said, okay, let's keep an open mind because we can take that out. And so let's explore what that can mean. So I'll show you what it looked like after we were done. There you can see, right? We took out those walls, took out the wall from the nook, okay? The other thing we did was really open up this whole back so that now we can get indoor and outdoor space. But really the thing was getting the working part of the kitchen back in here, a nice big island so that people could gather. And it was great. I love hearing things like this. When we went back to talk to them about the success of this project, they said it's so great because now, you know, I can be in the kitchen, people can be gathered here, people can also be sitting in this space, relaxing and feeling like they're part of everything. We can put the football game on the TV that we put over the fireplace, and people can be gathered in the family room, and we all feel like we're together. No one is kind of off in the kitchen doing all the work, or no one's packed into my kitchen. So what's my point here? Let's make sure that we're defining the problem before we jump to the answers. That when I walked in, this woman had an answer: blow out these walls, make my kitchen bigger. When really, we just needed to figure out how she wanted to live in her house. We needed to just take that time to figure out how they wanted to live in their house. And we could come up with a solution that was much more effective and likely much less expensive and suiting the way that they want to live, okay? It's human nature to jump to the solutions. I want to make sure we're going a little big picture and trying to define the problem before we do that. Okay, so what does that mean for you? What I encourage you to do is start listing those liabilities. So again, a liability isn't, you know, this wall, I need to move this wall, or I need a bigger kitchen. A liability is something like, hey, only one person can be in my kitchen at a time. I call that the one butt kitchen, right? I don't have enough storage. I don't have a place in the morning that I can sit down that's bright enough to read. You know, those kinds of things. It's not, you know, solving the issue, but getting the big picture. Because once we have that, and again, this is a brainstorming, just get these ideas down, right? Don't prejudge, don't start to solve them, because now we can take that information and start to get a little bit more focused. Now we can take those liabilities and we can start to list our wants and needs, right? Again, I encourage people, now what's the want? Okay, now we can start, hey, I have a one butt kitchen. We can start to talk about, hey, I'd love to have, you know, this type of appliance and this amount of counter space, and I think we could take this wall to do that. We need to start talking about what we may want to spend, and also which approach, okay? Am I going to work with just an architect and figure out the designers and then get a builder? Or am I going to go direct to a builder and just talk about what I want and see if they can figure it out with me? Or the one that we think is best, getting an architect and builder together and taking a design build approach, right? So we need to understand your parameters, your wants and needs. And then we also need to define those needs, or I'm sorry, the existing conditions, right? What have we got to look like? What have we got to work with? What is, you know, we'll come and we'll measure the house, we'll measure the site, we'll analyze the style of the home, and just measure and document all of that. So now we've got the groundwork that we can start exploring some ideas. And the other big piece of this is we need to understand the jurisdictional parameters. We need to understand, you know, what are the city or county requirements? Are we going to have to get any special approvals, any special commission approvals or design review boards? Do we have an HOA with CC&Rs or design? So we need to make sure we understand all of that. Once we have that, now we're ready to start designing. Now we're ready to start really jumping into the design build process. And I hope you can join me for the next in our series, because that's when we'll take it from here and start getting into step by step of the design build process. I went over a little bit. I was really hoping to keep this under a half hour, but I'm not too much over. I want to just take a couple more slides here and let you know that all this preparation that you're doing, all of this educating yourself and understanding is really going to set you up for success. Okay. You know, this particular woman we worked with to great success. You can see her standing there in the kitchen, and she spent years trying to figure out how she could get the kitchen she wanted. She wanted this beautiful traditional kitchen that she could cook in and entertain. She tried finding people that she felt comfortable working with and just never could. So she started attending some of our workshops and seminars and learning, and decided to work with us. And she continues to check in with little texts and emails about how happy she is. And likewise, her project is on our YouTube channel as well. All right, so like I said, we're over time. I do want to leave some questions for Q&A, so we'll do that at the end. I want to mention a couple more things. We have a couple upcoming webinars you'll see there on June 30th. We're going to feature a home that we worked on, and we'll use that and kind of show you the steps of the process as it relates to that home. Really cool. And then the next webinar in this series will be setting up in July, probably early July. If you're interested and want to make sure you're finding out about those things, just stay connected with us. You know, we're out there on Facebook, Instagram. I've talked about our YouTube channel, House, Twitter, whatever one you like. Of course, you can always call us, you know, old school way, look us up on the website, but make sure we have your information, and we'll be sure to get that information for those upcoming events for you. So that is all the content I have for you today. I promised that I would take some time for some Q&A, and I'll just ask Christine if we did get any questions and what those may have been.
Hi, yes, Bill, thank you so much for that great presentation. We received a lot of great questions throughout. The first being, how can we get a project started with HartmanBaldwin?
Okay, good question. What, you know, certainly call us and talk to Christina or Carla or Danielle or Mike. Anyway, call us. We'll listen to what you have in mind. And if it seems like a good fit for both of us, then we'll either come out, you know, obviously in this time we'll wipe our hands with disinfectant and put on our masks and see what you have in mind. And we've also been doing a lot of virtual consultations through, you know, Zoom or FaceTime or anything like that, where if you're more comfortable doing it virtually, we'll do that. That's really the next step, is just kind of spending a little time with us, giving us an understanding of what it is that you want to do, and then asking us questions about how we work and if it's a good fit for both of us. Good question, thanks.
Yeah, great question. Great time to start too. Let's see here. The next question we got was, is there a project that is too small for HartmanBaldwin to take on?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. And what I tell people is we'll figure that out early on in one of our initial conversations. And it starts to be you know, we're obviously able to bring a lot of firepower, you know, to a project. And I start to look at it, and it doesn't make sense for you to use us. And so what does that mean? Obviously, we bring a lot of design know-how to the project. So does it need some good, careful design? And is it a complicated construction project? You know, is there going to be a lot of subs, a lot of coordination? So even though it may be a bathroom, you know, if it's like, okay, we want to get the design right, we need help with interiors, you know, and it gets to be complicated, that's kind of the borderline where maybe you need us, but it's sort of from there up, you know, and I showed you we have the big major remodels, new homes, all that good stuff. So we have a very wide breadth of abilities and sizes of projects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Let's see here. And then lastly, I see here, how are cities handling COVID currently?
Yeah, that's interesting. The cities, they shut down all of their planning, building and safety departments in terms of on-site. So they went virtual. I have to hand it to them. Most cities were able to do it pretty quick. And what we're finding is that it's taking a little bit longer, not significantly longer, but what may have taken 4 to 6 weeks may take 6 to 8, maybe 10 weeks now. But they're trying, you know, they're getting it done. You know, it's funny because I hear things like, oh my gosh, it took us 8 months to get through the city, or my neighbor remodeled, it took them a year to get through the city. That's a little bit of a red flag to me. That shouldn't happen. That means someone either didn't understand the city requirements or didn't submit it the proper way. We're seeing, you know, those timeframes, like I mentioned, 6, 8, 10 weeks. So a little bit longer, but you know, like everybody else, it's challenging times, challenging situations, and they're doing their best.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Bill. I think that was the last question there.
Great. Well, thank you all for staying with us tonight and for joining us. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you can continue your knowledge gathering and join us on one of our showcases or upcoming webinars. Thank you all, and good night.